Now, this is something Deadline is reporting on, so don't take this as 100% confirmed that it's going to happen, because that's how your heart gets broken for, like, the millionth time. Just when you thought we wouldn't be getting any more sweet, sweet Game of Thrones incest, our wishes have been answered once more. So, like I said, Deadline is reporting that we're going to get another spin-off pilot, and HBO is really close to giving it the go-ahead to enter into the production stage. The fact that HBO would greenlit another Game of Thrones spin-off show pilot isn't surprising. George has said for a while that there's still other scripts in various phases of development, and there are other spin-off shows that haven't been turned down yet. So you may remember from his Not a Blog where earlier this year he wrote, "We have had 5 different Game of Thrones successor shows in development. I mislike the term spin-offs at HBO, and 3 of them are still moving forward nicely. The one I am not supposed to call The Long Night will be shooting later this year, and 2 other shows remain in the script stage, but are edging closer. What are they about? I cannot say." Deadline is saying that it's actually written by both George and Ryan Condal, who he has a relationship with. They have partnered up on a few things, and they're going to be doing a show that covers the rise and fall of the Targaryens when they came to Westeros. So yeah, this show is going to be based off of George's Fire and Blood and Targaryen history. So all those people that bitched and moaned about George releasing Fire and Blood Volume 1, it's relevant. Now, I do think it's interesting that they're starting with the Targaryens once they are at Dragonstone and beginning their conquest, because we know that because of Daenerys the Dreamer. I mean, I have the whole Targaryen before the conquest videos on my channel, but the Targaryens went to Dragonstone before the Doom of Valyria, and because they were at Dragonstone, they were one of the only Dragon Rider family that lived on. Yes, there were Dragon Riders not on Valyria when the Doom happened, but they died shortly after. And Deadline is saying that they're actually going to follow from Aegon's conquest, so not necessarily with Aenar taking his maiden daughter, Daenerys the Dreamer, to Dragonstone and then following through that succession line. No, we're just going to start with Aegon going, I'm gonna fuck up the 7 kingdoms and make them mine. Now, does that mean they're actually going to show Aegon's conquest, where he ends up taking 6 of the 7 kingdoms and then really fucking up hard in Dorne? I don't know. That is going to be really expensive to shoot and do. I mean, if they go through all of the Targaryen history, the Dance of the Dragons is going to be an absolute clusterfuck of just throwing money for special effects, but I don't know. So in the past, George has been very clear that he never wanted to do a prequel show about Robert's Rebellion because he's written about it so extensively. There's nothing new he could reveal. And I kind of feel like, isn't that the same with Aegon's Conquest? They have gone over it so much, or he, not they. They, I don't know why I keep saying that. Well, I guess technically he did pass off some of that to some other people. But anyways, George has extensively gone over Aegon's Conquest, so I don't know. I would consider that similar to his statement about what new information could he give about Robert's Rebellion, because he's been over it so much. Now, would I personally love to see the rise and fall of the Targaryens? Fuck yeah. I have history videos on every single Targaryen king. I am obsessed with the Targaryens. The Targaryens and the Starks are my 2 favorite houses. So yeah, I would be all about it. I don't know if they want to spend the money on that. Although, I would have not done the Long Night spinoff show because, okay, we know where the White Walkers came from. We know how it ended, so why? And they did that, so I guess doing the rise and fall of Targaryens makes sense too. Now, George did hint back in his Not a Vlog when talking about future successor shows. He did say, hey, maybe you should go read Fire and Blood, which at the time just felt like him saying, hey, I just released this at the end of last year, so you should go buy it and read it, wink wink, nudge nudge. But now it seems more like a, I don't want money from you, wink wink, nudge nudge. More of a, oh, I'm helping write a script that is based on my Fire and Blood. Okay, I'm gonna be kind of shitty for a moment, and I'm really not coming at George when I say this, but you know how George has a problem with deadlines, and he really struggled with finishing wins because of the pressure of the show catching up, and it just compounded everything. George has also said that Fire and Blood Volume 2 is at the very end of what he wants to do. So he's working on Winds, then Dunk and Egg, then A Dream of Spring, then I think another Dunk and Egg story, and then he's going to Fire and Blood Volume 2. So my thought is, let's be crazy and say they're going to spend a season on each Targaryen king. Maybe George would get out Volume 2 of Fire and Blood before they go to that point, but I highly doubt it. I just think George has way too much on his plate to finish it all, which is fine. That's his right and everything. I just worry that we're running into another thing where he's admitted it was really hard for him when he had to try to keep ahead of the show, and it put pressure on him, and then it ended up just making everything worse. And so, is that going to happen with Fire and Blood Volume 2? It's just going to be so much pressure from the successor show following the Targaryen history that he's just going to have a freak out and not finish it. And I do kind of wonder how they will space out the Targaryen kings. Some of them, yeah, you could spend a few episodes, but I have been saying this for a few years now. I would love to see a season per Targaryen king. There are some Targaryen kings where it will be a fucking wild ride, and then other Targaryen kings where it's like, that was alright. Maybe we didn't need a whole season with you, buddy. And back to me talking about how the Dance of the Dragons, the Targaryen civil war that made a lot of the dragons die out. Deadline's reporting that war, that civil war, is going to be a big part of the show. That is, like I said, a lot of money to do the special effects for all those dragons, and I just don't know if HBO wants to pour that kind of money into it, especially a spin-off show that is not going to be as popular as the main show and make them as much money. Overall, though, yeah, I would be really, 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 really excited to see a successor show that followed the Targaryens. I think that would be amazing. I would love to see them from their time in Valyria to going to Dragonstone to the Conquest and then the fall of their dynasty. I know that's probably not going to happen, but I would love to see that. So if this truly is right and Deadline does have this scoop and it turns out we are going to get this successor show, I would be more interested in watching this than the Long Night Blood Moon spin-off show. And what makes this even weirder is that originally Brian Cogman was writing up this idea of a successor show, but HBO didn't go forward with it at the time, and as we know, Cogman is working on other exciting projects now. So it looks like Ryan and George carried the torch forward and rewrote it or altered it into something HBO was willing to go forward with. And if this show is given the okay to go to pilot, and it is successful along with the Long Night pilot spin-off, would they do both shows a year in the same year? Or will we get 1 year with the Long Night and the next with the Targaryen show and they just alternate every other year? I hate to say it, but 2 different Game of Thrones shows airing in the same year might be too much saturation. However, maybe they want to strike while the iron is hot and keep pumping out GOT content. Though HBO execs have expressed not wanting to kill the golden goose by doing that. I mean, we remember Bloy's statement, "I think Game of Thrones is a fantastic property, but I don't want to just be the home of prequels and sequels and all that stuff. I think you want to be really careful about how you do it." So I have to believe that even if both these shows get a regular season and go past a pilot, they're not going to shove too much Game of Thrones into 1 year. But what are your thoughts? Are you excited about this? Do you think it's true? Would you be all about the Targaryen history being shown throughout the seasons? Would you prefer them to just maybe do 1 season going through the Targaryens, or maybe just a couple seasons and space out the kings? That way, I guess if I don't say and queen, some people will freak out. Honestly, I think it would be really cool to see a Targaryen series that just followed the queens. I think that would be really cool. But anyways, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts about this in the comment section down below.